Hello, 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 and welcome to Updog Sports Talk. My name is Matt Miller. Joining me today is Justin McGovern. No technical difficulties today, Justin. And then we have a very special guest, Alex from the Mac Sports Connection. What's going on, man?
What is going on, guys? Thank you for having me back on. It's always good to talk ball with you guys, and I'm looking forward to it.
Not just ball, MACtion. The best kind of ball there is.
The only kind in my book, but we can have that discussion for another time.
As Justin puts it, Tuesday night rock fights.
There we go. I love it.
Or 66 to 63 games, just depending on the night.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get with the Mac. So I guess, Justin, you want to tell everybody, we kind of hinted at it, but you want to tell everybody exactly what we're talking about tonight?
Yeah, so we're going to go through kind of our MAC predictions. First of all, going through the conference, going through what are our favorites, what are some other teams you can't forget about, the sleepers, and of course, the teams that are just trying to fight their way forward. So we're going to be looking at the conference from top to bottom, having a blast with it, and of course, just giving every MAC fan something to enjoy.
And here at Updog Sports Talk, we love to stick up for the little guy. What better way to do that than talk some MACtion? So this one hits home for us. Justin and I are Bowling Green alums, and we are super stoked to get into this conversation. So let's start with how we think the MAC's going to go this year.
Yeah, so we got this little tier table here. We'll get this started on our favorites. So you can see we have Toledo, Miami, Ohio, and Buffalo I put up here. Alex, so when you see this list, are there any surprises to you of teams that I consider to be one of the favorites?
No, I think you got to look at, there's a hierarchy to how the conference is laid out. You get your top dogs who are consistently talked about. In the last 5 years or so, it's been Toledo, Miami, and Ohio. But then I think this year you welcome Buffalo, and that's not because Buffalo is all of a sudden just better. They have a good head coach in there, Mo Linguist, down at Alabama now, I believe, on the offensive staff. He wasn't ready for the head coaching gig, I don't think. He did some nice things, brought in some great recruits during his time there, but he was kind of a patch of a coach, in my opinion, anyway. After Lance Leipold went to Kansas, so I think you got to look at what's available here, and when I look at this top four, it feels like the right top four. Pete Lembo has done it in this league before. He's been successful in the MAC when he was at Ball State, so it doesn't surprise me that a Pete Lembo ball club is sitting in the favorites category.
Well, Justin and I went to the Bowling Green Toledo game in Toledo last year, and by the way, if you've never been to a Toledo, like Alex, I know you've been to a Toledo game, but
just a few.
Anybody watching, if you've never been to a Toledo game, it's actually a lot of fun. Definitely have to put it on your cheaper bucket list. But Toledo just seems like one of those teams that are always there. And when we were at the game last year, they had some moments where we were like, why would you do that? But you could see the potential that the team had. So having Toledo in the top tier, one, I think they're the powerhouse of the conference. They're the most consistent. But it's cool to see Miami back up at the top, and definitely Buffalo in here, and I guess Ohio.
So, the defending champs, that's all.
Yeah, just the defending champs.
When you look at this tier, Alex, which one do you think carries the most risk of kind of a disappointing season to you?
Honestly, I think it's got to be Toledo. The Toledo, as much as I love them, occasionally drops a game they have no business dropping. Whether that be a fault of their own or a fluke of some other nature. I'm thinking back to 2023 when Toledo went to Illinois, and Illinois converted on an unbelievable fourth down to set up the game-winning field goal. And I believe it was Luke Altmaier threw the pass. for Illinois. Toledo had an absolute, like, they had him stopped. It was fourth down. It was fourth and long. He completed a pass. The interview after the game even said, he's like, I didn't even know where my receiver was. The receiver said, I didn't know where the ball was. Like,
and don't forget,
they couldn't
like,
see each other.
Before
So,
that
like,
even happened, Toledo was on a drive getting set to like pull the game, I think within like 3 scores. Like they had all the momentum. They were getting set to run Illinois off the field, and then a pick six brought Illinois back in it. So it shouldn't even come down to that.
It shouldn't have come down to that, but I think, that's part of the nature of you're playing a Big Ten opponent on their home field in a night game. There's a lot of things that you just can't predict. But that aside, like, that was a game that had that weird ending. And then Toledo rips off 11 straight wins. You're like, okay, this is a New Year's Six team. Then they fall flat in the MAC championship, and then they fall flat in they're in the postseason. Like, this was not a Toledo team that did well. I hesitate to talk about how much positive momentum they have, because I think Toledo has, of anybody here, arguably the most complete team. You're replacing pieces here and there, but Miami is replacing their entire offense. Ohio is replacing most of their defense. Buffalo, you're replacing critical pieces on the offense and defensive side. I think Toledo here has the most complete team, and that's throughout the entire conference. So I think that sets them up to have the potential to be the most disappointing team if they don't meet the expectations kind of set forth by the fans, by the players, by the coaches. Toledo has so much to gain and everything to lose.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at Toledo, they have 75% returning production on the offense. An offense that, when consistent, was actually somewhat dangerous. But what killed them was consistency. And I think if they can get past that, then they can get this division back, or this conference back. But I mean, that consistency, that is also what could kill them.
Yeah,
I think too. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know if we were about to say the same thing, but I know one of the problems they had last year was they couldn't run the ball, and you got Chip Trainum in there now. More experience back in the offensive line. I think that's a huge part of what can make them more consistent, because a lot of last year was on the arm of Tucker Gleason, and sometimes he thrived in that role. Other times he had some rough moments, like we referenced Battle of I-75 earlier, the pick six in the fourth quarter that kind of changed the dynamic of that game.
Yeah. I think too, you talked about the running game. That was such a pain point for Toledo. So much that teams knew they can't beat us on the ground, so that we're just going to force them to throw, make them beat us over the top. And when you knew that, like you saw that, I would be willing to wager that you run that Mississippi State game back later in the year, knowing everything we know, Mississippi State probably wins that game. And I'm being perfectly honest. And Toledo ran them off their own field in week 2. It doesn't surprise me that teams figured out quickly Toledo struggled on the ground, and that's because they had a very inexperienced offensive line. They had 5 pieces that hadn't gelled yet, but now you've got Ethan Spoth anchoring that offensive line, and all those guys return. They all have experience from last year. This is going to be a much better offensive line, and you get a much more dynamic backfield ball carrier. And Chip Trainum kind of reminds me a little bit of the Penny Boone era, just from the different things I've seen from his time at Ohio State and at Kentucky. But I think that we're in for a really exciting backfield, and that's going to give Tucker Gleason so much more time to do other things that he just didn't have time to do last year.
Yeah, and if he has time to throw, like, the weapons they have is just ridiculous for a team in this conference. Like, Junior Vander Ross is a future NFL guy. You have Rudolph coming over from NIU, and some of these other young guys. Like, man, it's just wild how loaded the offense is. And of course, there's NFL talent on the defense too.
this defense is, I mean, Avery Smith, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, just guys that you're going to see probably play at the next level. You know, for whatever reason, lately, Toledo hasn't really been offensive MACU. They've been defensive MACU. You know, Quinyon Mitchell going in the first round 2 years ago. Darius Alexander going in the third round last year. Like, Toledo has turned into a defensive player factory. Samuel Womack a few years back. Like, you know, just there are guys all over the NFL that have played in the Toledo defensive side of the ball, and it's pretty incredible to see.
Yeah, I love to see it.
Well, I've actually heard small rumblings, and maybe it's just rumors, but with NIU leaving the conference, like, do you think that would open the door for Toledo to get like bump up into like American or something?
I think when you explore conference realignment, everybody is trying to play the game of who can I nab to be the most appealing for the TV market, for the TV money. And I think that's a valid thing to look at. But I think when you look at conference realignment, you have to look at other things. You know, there's a reason Northern Illinois isn't going all Mountain West with all their sports. They're not a fit competitively, or really that travel would have made next to zero sense. I already have my own reservations on the travel for their move now, but you know, they realized football is the value. We're going to go here. That being said, you got to look at how do they fit collectively as a whole athletic department. Because now, and this is what I worry about for Sean Frazier, great guy from Northern Illinois, the athletic director. Something I worry about now. You're going to have your sports split up into at least 3 different conferences now. You got football, your bell cow, traveling west several times a year. You're going to have your basketball and most of your Olympic sports kind of staying in the same MAC footprint of an area against a little bit lesser competition. But then your gymnastics and wrestling, the MAC isn't retaining them. So they're looking for yet another home for them. So it's just, you know, I'm hearing rumors of Big 12. I've heard other rumors, I believe, of Patriot League, things like that. So there's options, but that's a lot to keep track of. So for me, I always wonder why the decision is purely off of the football. We all know the answer. It's the money. But you got to find the right fit for everybody, for all the sports that makes sense competitively. Then you have to look at the academics. How do your academics stack up with those other institutions? Again, these are still NCAA colleges. These are still universities, places of higher learning. You're not there to play football. You're there to get an education, and you get to play football. You get to go to this school because you play football well or because you play basketball well. So I think that you need to look at the academic fit. But then lastly, I think the geographical footprint is what's going to matter. Northern Illinois making this move, I wish them the best. I certainly want to see them succeed. I've got nothing but love for Northern Illinois. But geographically, I wonder how much extra finances go into the travel, especially now with, you know, tariffs and things like that. Things are going to be more expensive. And I certainly am not trying to get political here. I'm just looking at the reality of what the numbers are.
It all comes down to money. So
it all comes down to money, and that's the thing that we as fans we need to realize. This isn't the college athletics our parents grew up with. This isn't the college athletics our grandparents grew up with. It's, you know, back then you were lucky to catch a college football game on TV at all. You would see the big ones. You'd see the Ohio State versus Michigans. You would almost never see Michigan take on Indiana on TV. You'd never see Ohio State take on a lowly Purdue on TV, but you would get the big games. Up until about 30 years ago, you weren't consistently seeing MAC schools on TV. And so there's that as well. There's that exposure. But then with that exposure comes the other challenges of how do we do things that make sense for our institution, at least the way we look at it. And I think overall the MAC has done a really good job of leveraging media rights deals. I think the current one is a little long. I think they could have parsed this one back a little bit. But at the time, and this is what I tell people, at the time, when they signed this deal in 2013, I believe, 2014, the MAC media deal was $1 million for the entire conference. Then they got it bumped up to about $10 million over time. And yeah, it's still only coming out to about $750,000, $800,000 a school. But you think about the time before that, that was about $80,000 a school. That doesn't pay for a trip. That doesn't pay, because by the time you do all the costs, hotels, flights, all the other, there's so many other things that go into it. And the MAC is for the most part, a bus league. Now there's going to be some flights up to UMass, probably some flights from Kalamazoo to Buffalo, but for the most part, this is very much a bus league, and that cuts down on cost. And I say all that to say this. I feel like I'm waxing poetic a little bit here. It's I say all that to say this. I think it's so important to look at what makes sense for the institution on various levels. I think Toledo fans have an expectation and a desire to join an American. There is next to no desire, from what I've understood, once they see how things are shaking out, to join the Sun Belt or a Conference USA. And Northern Illinois fans have given a tale of caution of don't get too comfortable and stay here. Go to a Mountain West, do the thing, and then go to the American. No, that doesn't make sense. The American's going to get restructured in 2031. Why go to the Mountain West for 3 years, pay exit fees, entry fees, and then another set of exit fee and entry? Stay where you're at, get that ready so that if you want to move at the right time, you can move. You're not being forced into a move. You can move at the pace you want to move.
Yeah, Justin and I are big advocates for geographical conferences. Mm-hmm. So, don't really go further than, handful of 100 miles.
Sure.
That's what makes all the rivalries of college football great. Battle of I-75, right down the road.
Yeah.
Iron Bowl, not really that far from each other. Michigan, Ohio State, not really that far from each other.
Right.
That's what made this sport. So getting away from that, we'll see where all this goes, but Justin and I love the regional basis of the MAC, how all the schools other than Northern Illinois plan to stick together.
Yeah.
But getting back to the football piece of it,
my team that was the biggest risk for a bust potential here is probably Miami, I think.
I would agree with you on that.
And I think it's just because, simply put, you're taking a risk when you're trying to change your whole offense by the portal. Obviously, I think it came just out of necessity just because of so many people leaving this past offseason. So it was definitely a different approach. It's not one that we're used to seeing from Chuck Martin. So there's just, I think they'll ultimately end up being good, but I'm pointing out that there could be a chance that they could have a disappointing year if that all does not work out. Plus, of course, you look at the schedule and you see all the challenges they have up front. They have Wisconsin, they have Rutgers both on the road, they have UNLV early on. If you end up taking an 0-3 start there, then you've got to really regain your momentum from that point.
15% returning production on the offense. One of the lowest in the country. Actually, it is the lowest in the country. Mm-hmm. But that's 2 years removed from being on everybody's radar at the end of the season. They were a couple of plays from knocking some big programs down. They were definitely our favorites last year, even though they lost their kicker, but he proved to be the difference on the team. So yeah, that's why, Justin, I agree with you. I think Miami has the best shot. Toledo, probably next best shot to be brought down a peg.
It's interesting. I kind of want to make a point on Miami. Chuck Martin is never really known for his offense. Let's be very, very candid on that. Chuck Martin is known for his defense, and he loses guys like Ty Wise, Matt Salopek, Brian Ugo. This is a good defense that lost some great pieces, but they're retaining a bunch. Eli Blakey coming back. Like that's a huge part of the defensive side of the ball. You've got so much talent on this side of the ball, and if you look at that side, they didn't attack the portal on the defensive side. They've grown all those guys. There are very few transfer guys on the defensive side of the ball. You got a couple, but very few on that side of the ball. And that's a good thing. That's something that Chuck Martin can continue. And that's why I don't have them as, potential for, the biggest upset. The expectations are, yes, compete for the MAC championship because you've got a good defense. But I don't think people are going to be like, oh, wow, Miami really blew it. When you return next to nothing on offense, you're returning Kenny Tracy, who was out last year. Yeah, I don't think that this is an offense that people can get too upset about. Like, what you get with DeQuan Finn. You get a pretty good mobile quarterback who's injury prone. And I think that was something that was a tough pill for some Toledo fans to swallow when he left for Baylor. But then he went to Baylor, gets hurt, doesn't win back the starting job. Now I think it's for him. It's a little humbling to go back to the conference, to come back to the MAC after winning the starting job at Baylor. So I think it'll be interesting to see. I think Miami could very well not win the MAC, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I also wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, and I don't feel like that sets them up for success or failure of not meeting expectations.
Yeah, there's just too many questions with like that low return rate, and you just don't know what you're going to get until you see it on the field, and by then might be a little too late.
Yeah, but obviously I think it's a good point there on the defensive side, though, because his teams just always have an excellent defense. And it like you said, it's homegrown. It's been a factory pretty much. One guy leaves, another one steps in. It's really, really impressive what they're doing on that side of the ball.
Yes.
And I know, looking at some of these other teams, in terms of like strong contenders, I know I put Buffalo up there. That is a team I'm just so excited to watch this year. Like, I don't think we've done enough to talk about the guys on that defensive side of the ball. Kobe Stewart obviously was a huge, I call that one a recruiting win because he hit the portal at one point and they managed to convince him to stay. And Red Murdoch, I mean, let's talk about him for a minute because he is just ridiculous at the linebacker position.
Yeah. When I think of Red Murdoch, I think one of the things that I really loved about him is the tandem of him and Sean Dolac. That was an unbelievable dynamic duo who did it all. They were the top two tacklers in the conference a year ago. And I think Red Murdoch has an opportunity to be, the best tackler in the conference this year. And that's going to be because he's got other great pieces around him. Kobe Stewart, you just talked about him. I feel like we're going to see that next step for Red Murdoch. As long as he stays healthy, but two, as long as Kobe Stewart does his job. Kobe Stewart kind of gives me the feeling that he's going to be one of those guys you have to double team this year. Maybe not a Khalil Mack specific, but I feel like you're going to have to give him a lot of attention, and that's going to free up Red Murdoch. You can't double both guys. Like you're not going to be able to do anything on offense if you have to double two guys. So you're going to have to concentrate on one of them, or put your best guy on both of them, and that opens it up for a lot of the other guys. So I really love this tandem on the defensive side for Buffalo. I really like Kobe Stewart. I simply love Red Murdoch. I have him as my early pick for Defensive Player of the Year.
I love it.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then George Wollo is kind of the X factor, I feel like, because, he missed a lot of last year, and Buffalo's biggest issue defensively was trying to stop the run. But now you get Wollo back in the middle. It feels like you're kind of completing the pieces of this defense a little bit.
Yes, no, I agree with you. Wollo is an unbelievable portion of this defense and what they bring to the table. I think that he's that next layer that gives them a little bit more of an edge. They went 9-4 last year, lost some key pieces, but this Buffalo team is going to be a lot better than people realize. I think they were picked 4th in the MAC preseason this year. Buffalo is going to be really good this year, guys.
They
Yeah.
kind of remind me of that like 2006 Bears team where like offensively was a question mark, but
Yeah.
they had a very, very, very good defense and 73% returning production. You can't really complain about that, especially when they had like what the best defense in the MAC last year.
Yeah, they had one of the best defenses in the MAC, and they had two of the top tacklers in the country. Like this is and one of the tacklers who was robbed in the NFL draft this year. That's another story for another time.
We've been loud about that here.
but really, I mean, and he's already showing it. Like, yes, I know it's preseason. Don't count for anything for preseason, but he's showing up. He's doing the job, and he's doing it well against other rookies who were drafted high or drafted low or not at all. He's showing up and he's putting in the work. He's showing he could be an NFL linebacker or an NFL defensive lineman. Wherever you want to put him, he's going to be able to play it. And I think that brings a lot of value. But that's a testament, again, to what he's done, but also to the schemes that he was put into to be successful. You put the guys in the places that are best able to succeed, and then they'll succeed. And that was the case for Sean Dulac.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you mentioned the offensive side of the ball. Quarterback needs to be figured out. But I think one of the good things is you're behind potentially the best offensive line in the MAC. Got a good running back. You have Snow back at receiver, McMillan returning from injury. So at least the quarterback has a lot of pieces around him. Who do you think has the edge in that quarterback position at the moment?
Man, that's tough. I really, and this is just personal, I would love to see a guy like Gunnar Gray win it. I think there's a lot of talent. I don't think he does. And that's okay. Replacing a guy like CJ Ekbana is tough because he had a lot of talent and he did some good stuff. But I think Taquan Robertson is going to be the guy who wins it. You could say Mason Crumble could compete, I guess. But I think it's a two-man race between Gunnar Gray and Taquan Robertson. I think Taquan Robertson wins it, and I think that gives Buffalo an extra dynamic edge in terms of ability to run, ability to throw. The issue is none of these guys really have a bunch of long-term experience. Robertson comes in from UConn and Kansas State, and then Gunnar Gray was a JUCO transfer. So it's really who shows up in camp, and then ultimately, I don't think the Minnesota game is your point to say, all right, this is who our starter is. But I think you use the St. Francis game in week 2 to say, hey, we're going to run both y'all out, figure out what's going on, and then you go from there, because that's going to be your easiest test on the season to figure out who's going to be the guy to get it done for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually a good amount of star power in terms of MAC quarterbacks this year. And this is the only team that we put in this favorites tier that doesn't have a set quarterback position. So I am excited, though. Like, it feels like it may not be to the level of like the Dan Lefevre's, Ben Roethlisberger's and all that, but like I am excited for like the level of quarterback play. Like, we haven't talked enough about Parker Navarro. Before we move on to this next section, I guess we could talk about him a little bit. But yeah, Navarro is a star himself too.
Parker Navarro is an absolute stud, and I think in terms of, we saw the MAC had a bunch of coaching changes. I think in terms of coaching changes, he's the one who ended up in the best position because it was his offensive coordinator who got the head coaching job. It wasn't a brand new team where he has to come in and learn a new offense. I think that gives Parker Navarro a great opportunity to be successful. But when I look at kind of what he did this year, it's really interesting. He was one of the worst quarterbacks in the MAC this year in terms of interceptions. He and Brett Gabbert were tied for 14th in the conference. That means they weren't even top 13 in the conference for lack of interceptions. Now, in fairness, guys like Devin Cargman only played 4 games. Jaden Glasser only played 4 games. So it's not fair to fully compare them. But they finished dead last in the conference in picks thrown with 11 apiece. Parker Navarro only threw 13 touchdowns last year. A lot of his damage came from great offensive pieces around him, but then came from his legs. He was able to really run and pick up a few more touchdowns last year. He was the 4th in the conference last year in terms of rushing attempts, and he was one of just, I think, 4 guys to have 1,000+ yards as a rusher, and he had 18 touchdowns, so he led the conference in rushing touchdowns. So that's where his ability was kind of made up.
Hard to throw picks when you're running forward.
True. Very true.
But yeah, that's definitely a huge step in his progression for sure, is to get better at that. And we're going to see that right away against Rutgers. Like, that's going to be a game where both teams are really going to look to run a slow-paced offense, kind of control the clock a bit. And when you're in that kind of game, possessions are going to mean a lot.
Absolutely. And they're going to be huge. Again, Ohio looking for new defensive pieces, and I think they've got some. But this offense is going to be a relatively well-oiled machine. You got to replace a few pieces, but you're in pretty good shape on the offensive side of the ball. The side of the ball that's going to be most important as you get the season going.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we can move to our next tier here, which is I called it the don't count them out tier. These are two.
You should have named it the mid-2010s powerhouse teams.
Yeah, I mean, we were there for all 3 MAC championships during that run. It was a great run, and we missed it a lot. It kind of makes me sad to see NIU leave for that exact reason, because that was just it was definitely a great run. Those 3 games.
Sure.
They're not the biggest of rivals, but they had a little bit of a rivalry going during that time period, and it was fun to watch. I've
often heard, and I don't know how true this is, but I've often heard that the commissioner was quite upset to be handing BG the trophy in 2014, or maybe it was 2013, whatever it was, because he thought that there was a chance that the MAC was going to get to back-to-back BCS games. Mm-hmm. And for all intents and purposes, it looked like that was going to happen. But and again, I don't know how true that is. I don't want to slander.
If I remember correctly, that it was a very clear cut. If NIU won that game, they were going to the Orange Bowl.
They were already projected to be like I want to say in like the Fiesta Bowl or something. Like that was what the projection was. So a lot of fans, not named Bowling Green fans, were pretty unhappy about the Falcons.
We heard it.
We heard it, and we were also not surprised that Bowling Green was the program that cost the conference millions of dollars.
Yes.
That would be something that we were involved in.
This is what happens when you get NIU and BG together in one tier there. But I guess we can kind of let you start out which one you think has the most potential to maybe jump into this conference title race.
So I think if you're gonna say it, and it's been talked about ad nauseum, you gotta say Northern Illinois. Not because I think their offense is going to be anything spectacular. I think they'll do fine on the offensive side. This defense was one of the best in the conference a year ago. They don't lose too many pieces. Coach Hammock, it prides himself on building strong defenses and making that one unit. Like, you look at a lot of their losses outside of some of these Power 4 games, low scoring. Even the Notre Dame game last year, low scoring. When they beat Georgia Tech a couple years ago, 22-21, that was another low-scoring game. Boston College, they beat them in overtime in a low-scoring game. Like, these are just games that aren't – you're not going to see Northern Illinois give up too many 40-plus point games. Really, you're not going to see them give up too many 30-plus point games. But they're also not going to score that many points either. This isn't that offense that's going to – this isn't the Jordan Lynch offense, right? This isn't the offense that's going to torch you for 800 yards and 15 touchdowns. Like, this is a methodical offense, and I think there's value to that for Coach Hammock, who's done a great job of, especially on the defensive side ball, just really building up this team. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was Northern Illinois in that conversation. Also, there's that chip on their shoulder. those guys want to leave the conference. Those fans want to leave the conference, winning a championship and holding it over everybody's heads as they drive out west. And I think that's part of the conversation. They're going to get everybody's best shot every single week, so they can either get better because of that, or it can break them down. And I think, knowing Northern Illinois, they're going to get better, and they're going to build some strength off of that. Bowling Green, too many question marks all over the place. I think Drew Pine is going to be a great quarterback there, and I think he would have been an incredible quarterback if he had Harold Fannin Jr. to throw to.
Yeah.
This offense is going to be missing a lot of pieces. Some great transfers have come in. Defense, again, some more question marks. I think Eddie George, got a chance to speak with him at Media Day. He's excited about kind of what Scott Loeffler built. Scott Loeffler took over this program when it was dead. The Mike Jinks era, as you guys are very well aware.
Yes.
And I think Eddie George is very thankful to what Coach Loeffler kind of built, because this isn't a program. Yes, you lost a couple guys to the portal, but you're still attracting guys. You're bringing guys in. Now, I think some of that's the Eddie George factor. Let's be very real on that. But I also do think that Bowling Green has a lot of value. There's some good things going on within that program on that campus, and people want to be part of that. You always want to be part of something that you can be proud of and you can get excited about. And I think Eddie George is going to build on that foundation and build well.
Well, Bowling Green is definitely the talk of the MAC. Like,
yeah,
there's so many question marks that it's just talking points for media.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what Eddie George is going to do at a higher level. Pretty much half the weapons left, and then their defense wasn't great, and then now they don't have a whole lot returning from that. So, what Northern Illinois has a leg up on for Bowling Green is the style that they play. They have 23% overall returning production, which isn't great, but they have the style down. Like you alluded to, they're not going to give up a whole lot on defense, no matter who they have in there, and their offense has been the same the past handful of years. It's not going to put up a whole lot of points.
Correct.
Bowling Green could be absolutely magnificent, or they can be cellar dwellers. There are just so many question marks with that. But what I did like is that they did bring in another stud tight end from Florida to replace Fannin, who was probably the best MAC tight end in history. I think I can say that.
Yeah, you can confidently say that.
Should have won the
Mackey Award.
tight end? The Mackey Award. But I mean, we're not
Robbed.
voters, so yeah.
Outperformed Tyler Warren on the same day and the same field against the Penn State defense with all those draft
Against
picks
a better
there.
defense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So take for that what you will.
For all those folks who were, they didn't play a tougher defense. Tyler Warren played worse against a worse defense on the same day that Harold Fannin Jr. played better against a college football playoff defense. But, who am I?
Yeah, and then a few weeks later against the Texas A&M defense loaded with athletes. By that point, they knew to watch out for him too, and still couldn't do anything about it.
He's gonna be a stud for the Browns. I actually can't wait to watch him play there. But
I've got him stashed in a few dynasty leagues.
oh, nice. That'll be nice.
Yes.
Very nice. But yeah, like looking at NIU, I think the one thing that really sticks out to me with them, because we know what their style is, and they ran it well for the most part last year. I think the one problem they had last year, they had several games where they just could not finish the drive. We saw it immediately when they were the top ranked group of 5 team, and then they couldn't finish drives against Buffalo, lost that game in overtime. They played NC State, were actually really going up and down the field against them. They really controlled that game, controlled time possession, outgained them, but again, just could not finish drives. And we saw that happen to them most of the year. I think the only game where they didn't outgain an opponent and control time possession was the Miami game. I believe all the other 11 games, they had complete control of the game, but just could not, for whatever reason, just could not finish the drive. So that's kind of your little point there that maybe the head coach Hammock can like pay attention to. And this is our edge to get over that returning. We're starting a little bit new with some young guys, but this is where we can really take advantage and get ourselves on top of those games, because you look at them, and while there's a lot of losable games in the schedule, there's also a lot of winnable games in the schedule. I don't think there's any game that's out of their reach on the schedule this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's any game that's out of reach, but there's definitely some uphill dogfights, and I think that's what's going to be interesting. That's going to be what tests the character of these players in this program, and I'm excited for it. I think there's an opportunity for them to really excel with this schedule, but also again, so many unknowns. Like I think that's what makes this. But what puts them in a really unique position. You can really just take off or just kind of middle with it, and either one, fans can't be too upset given everything that's going on.
I think the beauty of the MAC is the fact that you just don't know what you're going to get each week.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's why MACtion is so great, because like we opened with, like, it could be a 3-0 rock fight on a Tuesday night in like just straight up clouds on the field. Or it could be a 63-62, like 8 overtime game.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty unreal, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is amazing. It's just such a wonderfully competitive conference, and I think these two teams ended up in this tier just because there's a really wide range of possibilities, and these are two of the teams that a lot of people are going to be paying attention to this year for those unique reasons. Obviously, with NIU moving on and Bowling Green with Eddie George, I think a lot of eyes are going to be on both of these programs. But mentioning the anything can happen, we'll pull up our next tier here. This is our sleeper tier, and the thing I used for the tier list, I couldn't find UMass's logo, so just pretend they're in this tier too. But when you look at this group, we have the Michigan schools and then Ball State as well. Who do you look at and think this team could really catch a lot of people by surprise and maybe make a Buffalo-type rise where they are in contention for the MAC title?
I think with Ball State, you've got to look at a couple factors. This isn't, Mike New, the former head coach. I think he did a fine job. He won games that you kind of head scratch and you're like, how did they win that? I'm looking specifically at some of these Northern Illinois wins that they pulled off. But then you look at other games and you're like, how did they lose that? I'm looking back at the 2022 game against Toledo where they had Carson Steele. Carson Steele scored all their touchdowns, and they still lost. Like it, there's a lot to kind of scratch your head on. Kyle Kelly is expected to start from everything I've been seeing, and it looks like he's going to be playing primarily on the offensive side of the ball. He kind of toyed around with doing some stuff back and forth. Qua Ashley, I expect him to be a competitive running back from Kennesaw State. Elijah Jackson from Purdue. I think they're going to form a pretty good tandem. But then you can't forget T.J. Horton, who's been with this program. Last year he played, I believe, 7 or 8 games. Limited experience, but he played in a few games. Con Magwood is your kind of stud returning wide receiver. But the guy that I've got circled is Ty Robinson, 6'4", Colorado guy. And if these guys stay healthy, I think that's where you watch this Ball State offense kind of excel. But I think that they're in trouble. They've got a few nice pieces in the offensive line. Offensive line is going to be a little bit of a weakness, and then your defensive backfield is going to be your weakness. I don't think they get it done as much as people want them to this year, but you get things going with Mike Uremovich here over the next couple of years. He's proven he can win. He's proven he can be successful. Watch for him to slowly start to turn this ship around for Ball State. It's just not happening in year one.
Yeah, And mentioning that offensive line, let's just mention real quick. There is a 6'10" and a 6'8" man on that offensive line. Like that is incredible. I believe those are both of the tackles, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah, I believe you're Adam Dolan 6'8", and then Chris Hood is 6'10". But then don't forget Otto Hess at center, 6'7". And then some of these backups, Cody Smith 6'8", Ryan Eldridge 6'7". This is a big, tall offensive line. Something that you need to be aware of too. They're heavy, so they're not going to be easy to push around. So I think there is some strength in this offensive line. You just have to find where it is, but there's not a lot of depth. As it is. I think if you look at the starters, I think it's going to be Adam Dolan, Grant Hayworth, Otto Hess, Isaac Lucas, and then Chris Hood. After that, not a lot of depth, and I think one or two of those guys go down. Ball State's in for an incredibly long year.
Yeah, absolutely. But a team that I'm looking at, and I know your interview of him posted pretty recently, I'm looking at Central Michigan as maybe a potential surprise team. I really like Matt Drinkall as a coach, and I think a lot of what we saw go wrong with Central Michigan the last couple of years, I don't know why it was, but they just became really disorganized, and they were second worst in the nation in turnover margin last year. And I mean, I even received like comments at one point on one of my posts about them, about how they couldn't even get the offensive line to line up correctly. I don't know how true that is, but it sounds pretty crazy. You're going from that situation to a former Army offensive line coach. I know you mentioned with you on your interview, like talking about how building the culture was the first thing that he did there. So I think at a minimum, you're looking at a team that's going to hit a lot of gains just by simply not beating themselves. And if you can even find a few pieces beyond that, that's kind of where I look at Central Michigan and think they could be pretty competitive. And also, I mean, we really don't know how good these players can even be because they've been beating themselves the last couple of years.
Well, I think too that's where it gets fun for Central Michigan. Matthew Drinkle is very, very clearly going to demand excellence. He was the guy who led Army to the Joe Moore Award for Best Offensive Line in the country. And by the way, the only Group of 5 program to ever win that award. Now, that award's only about 10, 12 years old, but it's gone to Oklahoma, it's gone to Oregon, it's gone to Michigan. Georgia, I believe, has won it. Alabama's won it. Like, you're going to programs that are in the national championship conversation. You're not going to a military academy or a team, who was hopeful to make the college football playoffs. These are championship caliber programs. So for him to not only get that award at Army speaks a lot about the kind of person he is when it comes to discipline. But as you guys heard in the interview, he talked about the things that he's bringing from the academy that he can really do, and getting the guys to buy in and run everything a little bit at a time until it's perfect. And I think you're going to see a very simple Central Michigan team, but you're going to see everything executed as perfectly as possible. I think that's where it's going to get that's where it's going to be key.
I think my favorite sleeper in this conference is Eastern Michigan. When you look at it, Max Crosby is kind of adding more life to the program just by being named, was it vice president of operations or president of, I think, vice president,
general manager of the program.
General manager, yeah.
And then they brought in Noah Kim, who was at Michigan State when he first got to college, threw his first touchdown pass against Akron, fun fact. And then went to Coastal Carolina, and then now he's back up north. But I think not only do they have the coolest field in the MAC, but I think there's a lot of energy surrounding this program, and I think that energy is just going to carry them through the season.
I adore Chris Creighton as a coach. He's one of the guys who does it right in college football. I have a lot of respect for him, a lot of admiration for him, and I think there are some exciting things around this Eastern Michigan program. I worry because they've got a fun non-conference, but for me the concern is across this team is depth. I think the defensive side of the ball is going to be their biggest strength. You got Tyrell Martin, you got Donovan Green, Carter Evans. Like that's a beefy defensive line. All three of those guys have 12 games last year. Sterling Miles comes in to kind of back up. He had 10 games last year. And then Jefferson Adam. These are all guys that played a bunch. And then after that, you don't have much. You brought in 3 transfers on the defensive line. Linebackers, you brought in a couple transfer, but your only returner who had experience this last year was Zach Mochan, the graduate student, and he played in 3 games. Defensive backfield, a few less question marks, a couple guys with some experience, but the offense is going to be the part that I think really, really concerns people. You got Terry Lockett, Porter Rooks, who can do some great things. Porter Rooks, the former 4-star from Syracuse, but Oran Singleton led the room a year ago with under 100 targets in 2024. Now he's gone. And then Marcus Allen, also gone. Terry Lockett, the most experienced player, less than 700 yards, 79 targets from last season. And it just it makes me nervous because, again, great pieces, not a lot of depth. I wouldn't count out Cameron Edge to start at quarterback either, though. That's a pretty heated battle from what I've heard between he and Noah Kim. Cameron Edge from Maryland. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get some opportunities. And I always say this. I don't always say this. I'm lying. But I've always heard it said, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one.
Yep.
And if this is a battle that's going to happen throughout the season, and it might. I know that's not really Chris Creighton's style, but if this is a battle that happens throughout the season, makes it harder for opponents to game plan. That's true. It also makes it harder for you to game plan and to get your guys any consistent rhythm, which means it's a lot tougher to score and win ball games.
Yeah, if they want to have any success, they can't repeat 2-6 in conference. There were a few one-score games in there, so they were in some very winnable games. They just couldn't come up with it in the end, and I think whoever ends up at quarterback is going to have to keep them in these games.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of been their recent struggle. It feels like it's figuring out that position. In general, like that's kind of been what's held them back the last couple of years from being at the level that we're used to seeing them, where they managed to, at least under Chris Creighton, where they managed to finish with like a solid winning record. I mean, obviously, if we want to talk about Eastern Michigan's past, this is still really good compared to where they were in the past, but it definitely comes down to that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Western Michigan is kind of another interesting one. What are your thoughts on them?
The College Washington Commanders.
Well, that's the thing with this tier, the logos of the tier list. If I were picking the logos, it would definitely be the Bronco logo, not this Washington Commanders one, which I did see they're going back to the Bronco.
I can tell you, athletics has moved back to the Bronco logo with the gold outline. So it looks like the university is mostly using the W. Right? Yeah, soft clap, everybody.
Yeah.
So they have moved back to that. But there's question marks. Lance Taylor is doing the best job he can to kind of take over for what was really an impossible job for Tim Lester. Tim Lester, the prodigal son, returns from being the star quarterback of in the Chad Pennington era from when he was at Marshall. So there's a throwback name for you guys.
There you go.
And returned as the prodigal son. And I think that would have worked out in any other era had he not replaced PJ Fleck. There was a ridiculously high standard set, and valid. You want quality standards at Western Michigan, ridiculously high standard set, and Tim Lester no longer there. But Lance Taylor, I really like the guy. The guy knows football. He's got some great pieces. Hayden Wolf obviously no longer there. I think it's either going to be Brock Lowry or probably Brady Jones. But you do get Jalen Buckley, who I argue is one of the best running backs in the conference. And you also get Cole Cabana, the transfer in from Michigan. After that, your depth is kind of a little weak. You got a couple of JUCO transfers, which is fine. Wide receiver Christian Leary, Talike Williams. There's some quality here. Balin Brooks. We'll see. Tight end Blake Bozma is your guy, and I think Marion Herbowski is probably your other guy, but he's more of a blocker. Offensive line, that's going to be a key one. You do pick up from Michigan, Raheem Anderson, and I think there's a lot of value in having him. He's a former 4-star. But this isn't a big offensive line. We were just talking about massive offensive line. You got nobody really over 6'5", 6'6", but they're all also just heavy. Your left tackle Adam Vandervest is 300. 300, 6'6". Like, it's just one of those things. This is going to be a fun offense to watch. Defense, I've got my concerns. I think defensive line going to take a bit of a step back. Linebackers, question mark. You got Dylan Moore returning with just 6 games of experience. Tate Halleck, he's in the backfield, but who knows? It's I think that you're going to see them take a step forward. This schedule isn't the worst in the world. I think a game against Michigan State right off the rip, not winnable but competitive. North Texas, a possible winnable game. At Illinois, we'll see how things go. But then you get Toledo and in Kalamazoo, and then you get Rhode Island, and then you get UMass, and then you get Ball State. So you get a little bit of a rough start to the year, but then right in the middle of the year, you get 3 very winnable games, and you start winning there. You start stringing together some victories. Success breeds success, and this is a back-to-back bowl team.
Yeah. I think the offensive line is kind of the interesting one to me. It's like it's not heavy on experience, but definitely heavy on weight, which it seems to be one of the things that they seem to be prioritizing there, where they would just want guys who are very heavy and can kind of push around defenses in the conference. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, I do like the run game a lot, so that will definitely be their strongest point. And I believe, if I'm remembering it correctly, both their first names start with B, so the quarterback situation gets muddled in my mind sometimes. I believe Brady Jones, the JUCO transfer, he's the one that could be a little bit more mobile, could add a running element from the quarterback position, right?
Yeah, I think you're thinking Brock Lowry, from what I understand. The Indiana transfer. He had 26 rushes last year for 140 yards and 3 scores, so I think there's a lot of value there. I don't know much on Brady Jones, just that he is the JUCO transfer, but I think Brock Lowry gives you an extra step kind of in that backfield that could really help out guys like Jalen Buckley and Cole Cabana.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can pivot to UMass now. It was hard to put them in this tier. Calm down, Maui.
Up Dog Sports Talk, where the dogs bark back.
But yeah, UMass it was hard to figure out where to put them, because I didn't really want to put them in the Kent State and Akron category, so I kind of just put them here. What do you think about the Minutemen in year one? So
I think there's some up and down with them. it's so funny. We just did our UMass preseason recording tonight, and I like a lot of the pieces. Their defensive line and offensive line are going to be unbelievable strengths for them this year. I think that is where you're going to find the most value. And I also think that they're going to severely struggle in a lot of different aspects of the game. Not because they don't have talent, not because they don't have playmakers, but you're switching your schedule up to a conference schedule. You're also under a new head coach. There's so many unknowns for them just in terms of players who are playing, how well they play. They've got some great transfers in. I don't know that UMass is going to be competitive in year one. They'll probably drop a couple games that, okay, maybe they should have won that. But I think that in years 2, years 3, Joe Harris-Simiak is going to have a bunch of things ready to go for this team. He's excited. He did well at Maine. He's been a coordinator all over the place. So, this is a guy who knows football. Don't be surprised to see them be successful sooner than later. I think them finally having a little bit of stability is going to go a long way in terms of their future success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, last year they may have been independent last year, but they did play 5 MAC games. 0-5 in all of them. Not much to write home about that one. But their wins came against Central, Connecticut State, and Wagner. So I guess there's nowhere to go but up. Justin, you really could have added another tier that just said UMass.
I guess so. I really like the coach though. He brought Maine to the FCS semifinals several years back. I think it may have been 2017. Don't quote me on that. It's around that time. So this, he knows how to get it done, and I'm really excited for what he's going to do. And we'll see what happens. Obviously, a lot of question marks, but I am encouraged by the strength in the trenches, though, just because if you're strong in the trenches, that gives you a lot of possibilities of other things come into place. Because I think that's one of the tougher areas to build is up front, because it's so many. Sorry, my dog is chewing something up. She has an attitude right now. But yeah, the trenches is definitely the tougher area to build in. And they even gave Georgia a tough time last year up front. C.J. Hester was able to run for, I think, 100 yards on the Bulldogs, if I remember correctly. Obviously, he's not there anymore, but still.
Well, I think we can move past the UMass tier here and move on to Kent State. I mean, they were just bad last year.
I mean, we'll move to a positive at the moment, but yeah, last year was probably one of the worst FBS seasons we've seen of all time, just because they were mostly uncompetitive. They lost to St. Francis, who actually was, fun fact, St. Francis was coming off a loss to Dayton, a non-scholarship FCS school in the same state. So it really was a tough year, but Kent State's really trying to find a way to move in the right direction. Shine some light on some positives that maybe we could draw from Kent State this year.
Can't get any worse.
Well, I can tell you, if you want some positives, Kent State have some talent, and I hesitate to kind of speak on that too much, but they do have some bright spots. They get to start their season at home, something that they haven't done in quite a while. They also aren't. I mean, they've kind of have joked that it's been called the Ride to Hell tour, and I think this year it's the Ride to Heck tour. It's not as difficult. Oklahoma, Florida State, still not easy games by any means, but this is a little bit easier of a road for Kent State. But then you get a relatively favorable conference schedule. Your toughest games are Toledo, NIU, and BG.
Yeah, last year they had it tough.
Yeah, that's like you get UMass, you get Ball State, you get Akron and Central Michigan. There are potentially up to 4 winnable MAC games this year for Kent State. Now, whether or not they do it, we'll see. But there are up to 4 winnable MAC games, and I think that's what fans can kind of get excited about. But I think the one you have to look at and the one you have to circle is that Week 12 game against Akron, and that's at Akron, so it's just 10 miles away. You got to get up for that one. You lost the streak of the wagon wheel 2 years ago at Akron, where they had a come-from-behind victory. If you want to win fan support back, you got to beat Akron.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the best rivalries in the MAC for sure. Like like you said, the programs are so close in proximity. There's just so much hate between the two. Now, I know the basketball side, because of that viral video a few years back, gets a lot more attention. Also, obviously because they put a lot more effort into basketball than other MAC schools do. So, like, obviously, they sacrifice a little bit of football, funding in order to attack the basketball side. So I know the basketball side gets a lot of attention, but it's just as heated in the football side. There's no love lost between the two, to put it kindly.
No, not at all. And I think that's kind of one of the beautiful things about rivalries like this is I know that if I drive up 75 and I'm going past Bowling Green to Toledo or up into Michigan or wherever, like, you don't even, like, if you're a fan of either school, you don't think about stopping in the other one's city to fill up on gas or to get food.
Well, or if the Toledo Toledo students want to go to the bars in BG, they usually make that stop too.
What what is a bar? I've never been there before. It's but like, I mean, there's no love lost between the two programs, and that's the way a good rivalry should be. There's respect for each other as human beings, at least somewhat. But I don't even know that there is between Akron and Kent State. If you guys remember the Akron-Kent State basketball men's championship a couple years ago, where players got suspended from Kent State for a diss track that was made in the locker room, and Akron went on to win that, and it kind of blows my mind how little love is lost between the two. But I love that it is that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the intriguing piece for me with Kent State is definitely the quarterback, CJ Montez.
Yes.
He was a guy who absolutely tore it up in 2023 for the Fordham Rams. And then last year it just kind of didn't go as hoped. Their offense didn't end up as good. He eventually got hurt and I believe missed a lot of the year. But he was a stud in 2023. If they get that form back, they're getting a really good quarterback. And keep in mind, this is a guy who, if you'll have the stat ready, I do. This is a guy who's only thrown 1 interception in his whole career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty unreal.
And they come with some experience in the skill positions. I mean, you're looking at upperclassmen around the board. So, I mean, it's not like there's freshmen jumping in. Like, I think, Justin, you put nowhere to go but up. And I think, I mean, they're not going to win the conference or anything. But, I mean, there's still going to be some positives throughout the season. I think within the first couple of weeks, they could raise a couple of eyebrows in the fact that they may not be winless.
Yeah, I mean, well, they opened with Merrimack, so that's the one I definitely have circled. Is they got to win that one. If they get that one done, even win it by a few scores like one would expect, I think we're feeling a whole lot better about Kent State's season and it feels good for them just to be 1-0 finally.
Yeah, and last year when they lost to St. Francis, not only did they lose to St. Francis, but shortly after that game, St. Francis was like, "Yeah, we're out. We're not dropping down 1 level. We're dropping down 2."
It's interesting. And if you know anything about St. Francis, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the campus or anything like that. They're definitely not a Division I school, and that's okay. They served as one for a while, but competitively, like they've never been D1. Academic enrollment never really been D1. Like it's the right move for them to drop down to Division III.
Yeah. I mean, we know that all too well. There's tons of schools here in the Ohio Valley that are like good programs, solid programs, just don't meet the requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But Buffalo, actually, the last FBS team, they'll get to play St. Francis. So that'll be fun. So we'll move to our last tier here, which I kind of had a little bit of fun with this one. Poor old Akron. No bowl, no bye week this year. That is the craziest. I've come across all the schedules. I've looked at probably every single schedule multiple times over. And my favorite schedule quirk in all of college football is the fact that Akron does not have a bye week.
That's when I looked at that this year, I had a really hard time believing that. I'm like, there's no way. But sure enough, and their season's done way before anybody else's. Like their season is done in like officially week 13. Everybody else is still playing week 14. Like it's a weird thing. They do get like that weird like 10-day gap to kind of kick off the midweek MACtion thing. But other than that, they don't really get a true bye week. They get the game between Buffalo and UMass. And look, when I look at Akron, I say this. Get your academics in order. I think the funniest thing in the world would be Akron goes undefeated this year.
That would be absolutely fun.
It would be so on brand, too.
And 100%. Like, you go undefeated this year. You claim a championship.
UCF
I say if you're Akron, you go undefeated, you claim a national championship. It's not going to count towards anything, but you do it. You absolutely do it. That's because you with being ineligible for postseason, like it sucks. But I think that you have to look at you guys. You still got underclassmen here who next year will be eligible for a bowl game. You have to develop them. Yes, you're losing your seniors who will not be eligible. Use them to use this as a teaching year, a year where they can grow themselves for potential pro opportunities, but also a year where they can kind of guide the young guys. Use the Alex Adams of the team to say, hey, this is how we do things, and this is how we get better. Do things like that. I think that's the direction Joe Moorhead has to take Akron this year.
Well, I think one of the funniest storylines, I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, we went from saying, what the hell is a zip, to why did someone just create a logo in Microsoft Word? Like, I think part of this is if they were to rebrand again and bring back the zip so we can just go back to the old ways of saying, what the hell's a zip? I think once they get past this ban, rebranding and everything will do them pretty good. But I just wanted to throw that in there. I just like talking about zips and Microsoft
we like to
Word.
talk about college logos a lot here, and
Yeah.
we miss seeing the kangaroo on the logo for sure.
Mm-hmm. It was one of the best logos. They have, and I'm sure you guys have seen them. They've got some really cool old school logos. I love the full size kangaroo with where it said Akron across, but I also just love the A with the kangaroo. Like those are probably my two favorite Akron logos of all time.
You know what would be the most random one? Is if they brought a kangaroo in and just put a sailor hat on them. Just for old time's sake.
Exactly. Exactly like all
it.
the other ones. Like, do it. I love both of those logos too. I have a hat with the A with the kangaroo head on it. And I found that hat just like a couple years ago. And I was like, this is instantly a buy because they had already changed the other logo at that point. So I was like, I must have this. This is the logo I like and miss. So I was very glad to have that. But yeah, it would be the most on brand thing for Akron to reach, either go undefeated or even just like reach 6 wins. This would have been the bowl year kind of situation. But Yeah, they're just looking for positives. And of course, again, you mentioned it, their season ends November 18th. Lots of time before those exams to get those grades up and be bowl eligible next year.
Yes.
For them to
it's
go
fun
5
for them.
wins.
Oh, poor Akron. I'm rooting for them in 2026. So time for all three of us to put our pens on the. I had a saying there that just fell apart me. Time to put the pens on the table and go with our conference championship predictions. Alex, who do you have making the conference championship, and who do you have winning it?
Toledo, Buffalo. Toledo wins it.
Matt, what do you got?
Buffalo, Ohio.
Ooh.
I'll go Ohio repeating.
Okay.
I'm going to end up following Alex's path here. I'm going Toledo, Buffalo, and I'm going with Toledo to win it. I think Toledo gets it done this year. And now the other question is, you have Toledo, Matt has Ohio, and I have Toledo as well. Can Toledo or Ohio or any of these teams crash the college ball playoff?
I think Toledo has the firepower, the horses to do it. You get Kentucky in a tumultuous portion of the Bob Stoops era. There's real talk that Bob Stoops gets fired after this year, depending on
Or
how the
after
season
that
goes.
game.
Or very much after that game. Toledo's schedule is resume building enough that you get a win over an SEC foe to start the year. You get a win over a Western Kentucky who is a Conference USA favorite. You beat Morgan State. But then you get your conference schedule. You don't have a crazy difficult conference schedule. You avoid Buffalo. You avoid Ohio. And then
you avoid
get
a Harold Fannin Jr.
You avoid Harold Fannin Jr. He's off on the 2-10 Browns at that point. But then you also get an interesting game. The game that I think you circle is you get the game out at Washington State. Pullman is not a quick trip, but I think that one's going to be the really interesting tell. And then you get Northern Illinois at home on a midweek night, so that's going to be a great environment. The schedule is set up for Toledo if they go 11-1, 12-0, win the MAC championship. You would be hard pressed to not strongly consider them for the college football playoffs. And I don't think anybody else's schedule is set up. Now, obviously, if Miami goes 11-1, they're making the playoffs. If Ohio, who plays Rutgers, West Virginia, and Ohio State, goes 11-1, that means they knocked off 2 Power 4 opponents. They're going to the college football playoffs. So, there are pieces here for all these teams, but I think the most realistic shot is through Toledo.
But then when you get into the bulk of MACtion, it's a rock fight.
It is.
Bowling Green was not expected to win that game in Toledo last year. Everyone thought Toledo was going to blow them out, and they came back and won. Which we were randomly in a strange Toledo fans section, Justin. We did not plan that well.
Yeah, we did not plan that well at all. I don't know how exactly we did that. We were in the front row, all Toledo. Keep in mind, the exact opposite of where all the other Bowling Green fans were. So, literally the furthest away from them on the other corner of the stadium. And there we are, just us two in orange, and all blue around us.
And
gotta love it.
We said 0 words to anyone around us, and anyone around us said 0 words to us.
Even better.
But we weren't disrespectful either. We weren't yeah, we were kind of quiet, reserved. We were definitely if somebody was on the outside looking in, they'd be like, "Oh, podcasters!" That was the energy we definitely gave off.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to be neutral a little bit. The Battle of I-75 is one that we love to promote every single year, and it definitely means a lot to us. I know, for me, I had a friend that worked at Toledo for a long time, so I also will tend to root for Toledo outside of when they play Bowling Green. So, and they obviously are a team that can really help the conference right now, just with the talent that they have this year. I don't know if they'll be able to get it done. They probably need to go 12-0 just because you look at the schedules that other Group of 5 contenders have. Boise State and Navy both have a pretty decent setup to potentially go 11-1 with losses to Notre Dame. So you look at those. So I mean, when you look at their schedules, like you're looking at teams like on the Boise State side, you're hoping like a San Jose State or Air Force can maybe pull an upset to help Toledo along the way. For Navy,
oh sure, yeah, no, and I think to kind of go off of that, you definitely want it. You want Toledo to, if you're a Toledo fan or a MAC fan, you want your school to have the most clear-cut direct path. The way the college football playoffs are laid out right now, though, it's the top 5 champions. That doesn't guarantee it's 4 P4 champions and then one group of 5. It only guarantees that at least one group of 5 will be guaranteed a spot. It doesn't say only. And I think there's an important thing that a lot of people are overlooking. If the ACC gets into a slugfest, you have a 3-loss ACC champ, you're going to put them in over a 12-0, 13-0 MAC champ? You might, but now you have to consider it.
I think the best part about like talking about Toledo going into the college football playoff is the fact that it would just ruin everything. And I think Justin and I are here for that all the time. We just like chaos.
Give us that
elites.
Chaos. I mean, we had a scenario at one point last year where Tulane, when Colorado was still in the Big 12 championship hunt, there was a potential that if Tulane won out, Tulane would have gotten the college football playoff instead of Colorado, if Colorado had won the Big 12 championship. So, like, you could see scenarios like that unfold that a lot of times they don't talk about. I mean, of course, the bigger medias don't talk about it at all. For half the year last year, they thought the Group of 5 team automatically got the 12 seed, which obviously we all knew was not the case.
Right. And if, let's say, Clemson is 3-loss again, and Toledo's completely undefeated, I think it would cause Greg Sankey to go on national media blitz to just start talking bad about every conference, which would definitely look bad for him. Mm-hmm. But he's been a big advocate of, if you don't exist in my sphere, you don't exist at all. And I think he's trying to, in our opinion, ruin the sport. But I think Toledo getting into the college football playoff would definitely, we would want to get front row seats to that. Oh yeah, to everything about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, that's kind of the part where I don't like that they put. We talked about this. Omar and I talked about this on the American one. The Boise State rule that they put in, and now that kind of hurts Toledo's chances of getting that bye into the next round. Where if we were using last year's format, a 12-0 Toledo definitely would have had. Well, by the time they had the conference championship, 13-0 Toledo would have had a shot at a bye even.
Yeah. Yeah, there's real conversations to be had around those things. So you're not telling me anything I don't disagree with you on.
Oh yeah.
Now, this wasn't on the docket, but would you be all for like an NIT style playoff as well?
Absolutely not, because then you are telling fans of the schools that at the FBS level that hey, we only view you as another version of the FCS. So I would be vehemently against it.
I'm with Alex on this one.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, I just had to ask that. If I was on the other shows, that would have been asked too.
I am very much, now I'd be, this will be a much different conversation for later. I'd be very much in favor of a European soccer promotion relegation system. Which you guys have seen my draw up of that. But I would be very much against any additional tournament. We see the numbers for the NIT don't come anywhere near close to the NCAA tournament. And I think the same thing would happen there. The championship for the FCS National Championship was, I think, 2 million-ish. The first round playoffs on campus sites average out at about 12 million. Like, there are levels to this,
Yes.
and if we move to a system like that, you're going to see less share of the pie, and it's just all going to come down to giving the top 45 programs from 2 conferences all the money.
Yep. And like we've talked about relegation quite a bit this offseason. We have a soccer fan that loves to come on, and like he's now our intern. But but relegation comes up quite a bit. But if we did relegation, that would pretty much just admit that SEC and Big Ten are the cream of the crop. And I don't really want to... I'm not ready to admit that.
Yeah. No,
especially because, I mean, then we would lose MACtion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is really where the heartbeat of the sport is, for sure.
Yes. And, I mean, what's better than Tuesday night rock fights?
Yeah. Or, I'm sorry, Matt, I know you like Notre Dame, but the NIU over Notre Dame upset was one that really caught a lot of interest across all of college football. And we've seen in the past, like, so many upsets captivate fans. It's one of the most memorable things that we see in the sport. And I think TV executives are trying to push people to forget about that fact. But ultimately, when we get a moment like that last year, it reminds people that this is actually what we like to see.
Yeah. And that's MACtion, baby.
So remember to get some action this year. If you are located anywhere in the Rust Belt, make sure you hit up a game. I know I at least have 3 of them on my calendar, so it definitely is a great environment, an easy family getaway for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and we're big advocates for the MAC championship game to be played in Cincinnati down here at the soccer stadium. So that way we can also get a, I don't know, Cincinnati Chili Bowl. Had to throw that one in there as well. But what is this, the last year of the lease with Ford Field for the MAC championship?
From what I understand, that lease was renewed. So the Chili Bowl is not to be yet.
Well, maybe one of these years we can just have grown men in cheese coney edible costumes sweating all over the field. That would be fantastic. Doing sausage, like Milwaukee Brewers sausage races. The halftime.
Okay.
We planned it out. All right, before I get further down the rabbit hole and just completely ruin this episode, I think that's a good place to stop. Alex, you want to go ahead and plug the program?
Yeah, first off, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate your time, allowing me to talk about some MACtion. Appreciate you having me on. Great to talk with you guys. But if anybody's interested in getting any more nothing but MACtion, really, we don't talk about anything else, which is almost incredible at this point.
It's truly glorious.
Yes. It's we only talk about the MAC. But we do it all. We talk MAC football, MAC basketball, MAC baseball, softball, lacrosse, field hockey. You know, we love this conference. We love this league. You can find us anywhere on social media at the MAC Sports Connection. Some places it's still listed as the MAC Sports Connection podcast. Find us or even at the MSC podcast. Any platforms you guys want to listen to. We're on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. You guys can find us really anywhere podcasts are available as well. And then I guess because I got to plug it, download the Varsity app by Lairfield. You can listen to us through their network of podcasters. So worked on that partnership, and it's been a great one so far. And we're part of the Lairfield family of podcasts. So all those places, check us out, and we definitely appreciate the love and support. My co-host Graham and I both really appreciate the support people have thrown behind what we do, and makes it more fun.
Yeah, and I mean, gotta say it one last time. Nothing better than MACtion, baby.
Nothing better than MACtion. That's right.
All right, that is the show, folks. We will catch you next time. We will go back to live episodes in the fall, and we will see you.